So let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to build and how we're going to build it. And as with just about everything I build, I start it with the picture command. And we're just going to type it. It's going to bring up a file browser. I'm going to go to my desktop, and we're going to build this little 1950s toy ray gun. Yes, we do want that. And so this thing is based off of an old 1950s toy that was made here in the US. And around the 50s, there was all this space ray gun, Buck Rogers, atomic, they called it atomic design, and I kind of thought it was kind of cool. So I did a little sketch based on an old 1950s toy. This would have been die cast with a plastic handle, and it would have either shot sparks out the front or been a cap gun or something like that. So I grew up in the 70s, so cap guns are near and dear to me because I spent lots of time blowing stuff up in the woods behind my house with the caps. I didn't care about the guns very much. I just liked the caps. So, but they would go in something like this. You'd get them from a dime store. They were, probably 99 cents or $1 or something like that. And they were fairly disposable, so most of them were destroyed. But some of the design on it was kind of cool. So this thing, if we look at it a little bit, it's kind of complicated when you look at it. You go, whoa, how would I, as a new user, how would I even begin to tackle that? But if we actually look at it and we look at some of the shapes, can you see my cursor? I'm pointing with my cursor. I want to make sure that you can see my cursor. If not, then we'll do something different. But I want to make sure you can see my cursor in the screen. So the front of this basically is this kind of bulbous shape with these stacked things up into the barrel end here. We can look at that and say that's actually just a revolve shape. We just have to draw half of that and then spin it. And then this is a repeated detail that's just stacked on top of each other. This is a repeated detail, right? We could probably even steal that for this. We could probably steal this detail from here once we built it. This is a single repeating detail. This is pretty much just an extruded shape. That's a little revolved feature. We've got a little building to do here. But the rest of this detailing is actually fairly simple if you break it down into its individual components, which we're going to do. The most complicated part of this entire build is going to be the grip, because it has this kind of sculpted, indented shape thing going on here. But I think we're going to actually find that pretty easy to do if we set this up to do a 2-rail sweep with some guide curves and then do some CV editing and stuff like that to get what we wanted to get. But for the most part, I'm going to leave this towards the end, and we're going to go ahead and just stack through the rest of this stuff really quickly and see what we can do to get out of this. So with that said, I'm not going to really worry about scale. If I was worried about scale at this point, I would probably come up here and throw a dimension on this and just figure out how big this is. And this is 5.35 inches. I'm working in the United States. Sorry for those of you who have advanced past our archaic system of measurement based on the king's thumb, but 5.35 inches. And so I think that's actually probably not a terrible size for this. But if I needed it to be accurate, what I would do, let's say I wanted this to be exactly 6 inches, I would just draw a line, type the number 6, and then I usually just put a little L on the end of it so I can see exactly how big it's supposed to be. Then I would scale from the end of this line, and I would just, let's get this, scale from here, and I would just scale it so that it matched that 6-inch, window. I honestly have no idea how big I want to build this thing right now, so I'm just going to go for it and then figure it out later. I'm not going to really worry about dimensions on this thing, but if I was worried about dimensions, that's how I would scale the drawing and then go from there. All right. So let's go to the layers palette, and I need to go up here and I need to show my inspector palette, my inspector panels, which brings up all of this other stuff. There's 2 modes in V6. There's properties panel, which shows camera and things like that. And then there is the inspector panels, which shows your layers and some of the other information up here. And these, if you want more of these, you just right click on any of them and it brings up different panels that you could have actually stacked up here. So you could have more or less of these as you needed them. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just name this layer image by double clicking on it. I'm going to take this image and I'm going to right click over here and I'm going to move this object to this layer. And the reason I want that is because I can be able to turn it on and off as necessary. Right, now the contrast on this drawing is set up in such that it make it pretty difficult for me to draw on it, so you can't really see that drawing. So let's drop the opacity of this image. And what we're going to do is go back here to the properties panel. We're going to go to the material. Let's think for a second. And once it stops thinking, hopefully not crashing. Nope, we're good. And then what I'm going to do is crank up the transparency a little bit. And as I crank up the transparency, you'll see that the image fades a bit. Okay, so once I get that faded back a little bit so that I can actually draw over it, I'm going to go back to my layers. And I'm going to do one last thing, which is to actually take this and slide it out of the model build envelope. I'm going to stick it back in space, and that way what I don't like is if I were to do something like this and build like this, you can see that when I go to shaded view, this thing gets cut in half and I can't see the image and I can't see the model and everything's kind of in the way. So what I like to do is actually just slide this straight back in space so that I can actually see what I'm building around, around everything else. So, so once that's there, I'm going to go ahead and lock this, and then we are basically ready to go back to the front view and start building. Now, the first element I'm going to build, because it's just the easiest get, are all these circular elements. And so I'm going to just draw a center line through here, since we're not working off the axis. And then I'm going to draw this profile. And we may have to do it with a couple of different tools, but I'm going to shift drag the first point so that I get tangency across the center line. And then I'm going to draw this shape. Actually got pretty close. Turn my points on, and then I'm going to use nudge to move these around a little bit. Actually, my nudge is set really high, so let's fix that. I think it's in preferences. I think it's in modeling aids, sorry. Might be here. Yep. Here. Nudge. You can see that I'm just the nudge key alone is set to 2 model units. I'm going to set that to 0.05, and that gives me a little bit better nudge. And then the command, I'm going to set this to 0.1, and then the shift plus nudge, I'm going to set that to 1. And then we'll say OK. Now when I take this, I can just use my nudge keys and I can just push this around a little bit and get the exact shape that I want without getting too crazy. And if I hit the command key, it nudges a little more, and if I hit the shift key, it really goes. So that should be about good for that. Let's go ahead and continue. And I'm going to start my curve here. Shift drag to place the first point. Like that. I'm going to repeat the control point curve by right-clicking. And again, I'm shift dragging to place my first point to make sure that that thing is dead vertical. Repeat again. Shift drag. And I try to pull my curves farther than I think they need to go so that I can use less points. And I'm going to turn the points on for that. And just edit this just a hair. I don't worry about getting my curve perfect when I first draw it. I just try to get as close to it as I can with as few control points as possible. And then there's a little bit of parallax on this drawing, so I'm gonna ignore that and go ahead and just make that straight. So this is our first element here. And if I hit the escape key to close our points and then join this, I can revolve this entire object around this axis. And I'm going to go full circle. And there's our first element. So we got a big chunk of that thing done right off the bat. And let's go to the top view. Yeah, it's pretty chunky, but that's all right. So let's go ahead and make this element down here same way. And I'm going to go to wireframe so I can see what's going on. Pretty happy with the shape overall. I think that's going to work out well. We may squish it or do a few things with it, but I think I'm actually going to leave it kind of chunky. I like that. So let's do this guy here, and I'm actually going to do this instead of revolving this. I'm going to do this with a couple of stacked toruses. I think that's going to be the right call here. So let's go ahead and do it from a center point right here. I'm going to pull it out to about there, and then pull it out to about there. My click is not working. Hang on a second. Let's try again. So there we go. And then I'm going to go to the top view and rotate this using gumball. Just rotate it 90 degrees. And then because I'm not crazy about the details on this as far as like, you know, perfect accuracy, I'm going to actually just alt copy, drag, hit the option key, and I'm going to just make copies and eyeball this. This is going to be a concept model, so I'm going to move fast and try and get as much form as I can. And then the next thing I'm going to do is maybe I'll run a pipe right down the center of this thing because I want a little rounded detail on the end of this. So let's go and let's pipe this. It's not there. It's under here. Pipe with round caps. And I'm going to pipe this about like that. And then it gives me that round detail on the end that I was kind of looking for. And so then what I can do is I can take all of these and I can Boolean these together. And then I can take this and Boolean it with that. And I end up with a detail that looks something like this. And it looked like there was a little weirdness going on, so let's make sure that that's not the case. It looks like, I may make that actually a little bigger. Let's undo that, and let's just scale this guy a little bit like that. I think I like that a little better. There we go. So there's that detail. This thing usually had an opening in the end of it, and there's a really cool way to do this. If I Shift Command click, and then I start dragging that surface, I made a sub-object selection, and I picked that surface just out of that poly surface, and I tap Alt, see that plus sign shows up? I can copy that surface. Then I Shift drag for scale, and then I drag with Command, and it gives me an object, which I can then Shift drag and make a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to Boolean it out. And that gives me my barrel. I try not to do too many Booleans from the very beginning because I want to keep stuff separate so that I can move things around and like make adjustments and stuff. But some of the stuff, you know it's going to be there, so you can go ahead and do it. So let's go ahead and add this detail on the side. I'm going to go ahead and do this as just a simple cylinder. I'm going to do it, I don't know, let's do a 1/2 inch tall. and then I'm going to copy, Command C, Command V, Shift drag for scale, and then let's go to the perspective view and see what we've got here. I'm going to take this like that. And let's move this out where we can see it, something like that. And I'm going to leave those alone for just now because I want to build the rest of this detail. So the rest of it I'm going to just do, I'm also going to do with a cylinder. In fact, I can just copy Command C, Command V, Shift drag, and it looks like my drawing is pretty dodgy there. So I'm going to grab all of this and slide it over just a little bit. And then I'm going to trim the bottom of this off. And then let's see what we've got here. Now this is obviously way too deep, so let's stick this in here like that. And this actually might be a situation where this detail might not be exactly flat. It might just be offset a little bit from the side of this thing. And if that's the case, because right now I'm feeling like this is like too much, right? So let's do this. Let's pull this out a little bit like this. And then let's do a Boolean split of this using that. Let's delete this. And then let's grab that. And let's just make a little offset detail there. I kind of like that better. Feels like that's a little more better, maybe. And maybe this detail here, actually, let's not do that. Let's back up a little bit. Let's actually extract this part of this. Let's flatten this just a little bit. I feel like this is a little bit too bulbous. And then I'm gonna bring it back just a hair. We'll reconnect it with the main base of this thing, like this. I'll join it back up. And then this detail now starts to become a little less obtrusive, you know, like that. That I'll buy that as a detail instead of something that sticks out quite as far as it did before. Now it goes all the way through the object, which in this case it doesn't. So I'm going to Shift Command click this surface and I'm just going to slide this back inside. It's sub-object selection, sub-object modification. I'm going to take these two objects, I'm going to make them pretty superficial. We've already got a lot of stuff sticking out the side of this, and I probably want to knock the edge of that off. So let's just do that. I'm going to just do that with a blend edge. And that's obviously too big. So let's bring that down to something like 0.05. I'm going to set all to 0.05. That looks a little better. And then I'm going to hold off Booleaning that in later and to make sure that I like how everything else relates to this thing before I start getting too crazy with that. But let's go ahead and do the rest of the detail, which is just this little array here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to draw one rectangle here, and I'm going to array that. Well, actually, let's just copy it. Let's rotate and copy it. So the center of the rotation is going to be the center of this thing. So let's just go, let's make a copy here, and here, and there, and there. And then let's make this guy. So I'm going to actually steal this using an Alt-Tab. I'm going to rotate it into place, And then I'm going to scale it just a little smaller. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to rotate it using copy, use the last center, and I'm going to just bring this guy around. And it looks like I kind of missed. See, I don't like, see how that's pointed off in a weird direction? I don't like that. So let's draw ourselves a guideline from the center like that. And then let's rotate this to match. Looks like my drawing was pretty dodgy. That should align better. Now let's rotate it. That's better. Something like that. And again, you know, part of the charm of these things was they weren't super precise. So I'm trying to, you know, introduce a little bit of like almost inaccuracy or lack of precision into this so that it looks like it has the manufacturing attention that it did in real life. So let's make one more. I'm going to rotate this one, use the last center, and I'm going to copy that to here, and then I'm going to just scale this thing down a little bit and bring it in like that. And then we'll rotate again, use last center and copy, and we'll just bring these around. I can almost imagine somebody, you know, when they built these things originally, just sat there with a die punch and just pounded these shapes into the die without really a whole lot of precision. I'm going to extrude these just a little bit like that. And then we're going to grab all of them and we'll go to the top view and bring those out until they just poke out of there a little bit. Then we just have to build our needle. Just going to really simply draw that in. Again, I'm going to just extrude that using gumball. I find this just to be super useful. And I'm going to cap it. I have to make sure that those little details that I just built are capped. Let's go to wireframe or shaded view. It's probably sticking out a little too far. And these guys are not capped. Oops. Let's cap all that stuff. So that little detail's done. We could probably do some filleting and stuff like that on that, but I'm going to wait until we get farther down the road before I start jumping into that. So we've got that front detail built. We're 20 minutes in. This detail up here is just a repeated stack detail, but let's do the chassis that's underneath this thing. And there's actually two steps. There's a little transition between here where this part in the back is wider and this part in the front is skinnier. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to draw a shape that gives us something to build on for this thing, which is kind of like something like this. For the top view, I'm going to shift drag, hold down. I'm going to hold down shift on that extrude dot, which makes it extrude in both directions, and go something about like that feels about right. And because it was an open curve, it extruded into an open object, so we'll just cap to close it. Go to the front view. And then this detail here, I'm going to just build it real quick, and then we're going to copy it. So it's going to be a box, and I'm going to do it from the center. Center, center, corner. There we go. I'm going to start in the top view. I'm going to start from the center here, and I'm going to build it out like this. Just a little bit farther than that. And then I'm going to go to the front view, and we're going to make it about this high. Rotate. I'm not going to copy, and we're going to start here and go like that. And then I'm going to scale it in one direction. I have a hotkey set up for that if you wondered how I got that. Like that. And then I'm going to do one last little adjustment here. There we go. And then let's fillet this entire thing. And I'm going to hide everything except that using the isolate command. I have a hotkey set up for that, but the command is isolate. And so let's go ahead and fillet the edges. And we're going to do something really small, like 0.1. That might even be too big. We'll see. Yep. So let's do it again. Previous edge selection. Let's do 0.05. And let's preview it. Looks like it didn't take my 0.05. Still too big. It's crossing over itself, so we need to do something even smaller. Let's do 0.015. That's better. And that's actually probably just a little bit too small, so let's go up a little bit. I like this preview feature on this fillet tool so that it allows you to be able to iterate a little bit and figure out what you're trying to do. All right, so now I'm just going to copy this. And I may scale this a little bit. I feel like this guy is like a little bit too small. And then let's just drag, Alt-Tap. I could do a linear array on this, but again, I'm trying to go for that. It's a little imprecise and a little imperfect, this product. So let's bring everything back. And let's take this and maybe even make it just a little skinnier. I don't have the actual object to reference on, so I'm just kind of going off my sketch. And I feel like that, trying to like just kind of find my way along the way as I'm doing this and look at the proportions and design in 3D instead of just copying. I want to make sure that this thing looks good and feels good and does all the things that we want it to do. I may actually add one or two more here just to fill in that space a little bit better. And then maybe this entire element, it's just a tiny bit narrower. And I'm going to leave it alone for now. I'm not going to do anything with it because I may want to adjust stuff later. But let's keep plowing. So the next section that I want to look at are, some of the other easier details that are to make, but I think what I might do is rough out the rest of the chassis here so that we have something to build on. So I'm going to just do that with CV curves, and I'm going to draw my first one here. Basically just going to outline this shape. Try to keep your point spacing to a minimum if you can. Remember, you only need 3 points for a corner. You don't need 9 points for a corner. Pull your points farther than you think you need to. And let's isolate just the curves here so I can see what's going on. I'm going to join this into one solid piece. And I'm going to make that an extruded object. So let's go to the side view. I'm going to extrude, but I'm also going to hold down Shift so I get some thickness. And I'm not going to make this very thick. This is going to be something we're going to build on top of. So this is almost like a center plate. And then I'm going to cap this. So that gives us a foundation to build on. And I'm kind of okay with the relationship between this piece and this piece. So let's go ahead and build the rest of these details up here. And then there's a secondary form that goes on the top of this thing that actually barrels from the bottom, comes straight, and then goes across. And we may take a peek at that. So let's do that actually. Let's build that because that's going to give us a little bit more information to work for as we're building this. So I'm going to snap here. I'm going to go to the right hand view. Oops. Let's try that again. I'm going to snap here, then go to the right view, and then I'm going to shift drag to place my first point because I want it to be tangent, basically across the center line. And then I'm going to pull up, and then something like that. I think this is kind of the shape of this thing. And if I want to see where exactly the top is, I can light this up. Kind of like that. And if we go to the front view, I might pull these points a little bit. Maybe not. Let's just make a surface and see what happens. Excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze. I'm gonna mute. Woo! Sorry about that. Glad I got the mute button before I blew everybody's ears out. All right, so let's do a sweep one rail, and I'm gonna just sweep along this edge with this surface, and that's gonna give me enough to work with. And the fact that I can come in here and I can turn the points on. And you can see that I've only got 2 points in this direction. So I'm going to change the degree on this surface from 1 to 3. And then that gives me 4 points in either direction. And the nice thing about change degree versus rebuild is change degree, as long as you're going up, like 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, it doesn't change the shape of the surface. It just gives you more information to work with. If you use rebuild, I'm sure you've noticed that it actually does change the surface pretty significantly sometimes. So I'm going to get something like this. Again, I don't need to be crazy accurate. I just need to get close enough. And then these guys, I may actually pull these back here. See how this surface is just rubber? I can just do anything I want with it. I'm going to go to wireframe so I can see what's going on. So I do need surface all the way back here, so I'm actually going to just pull this. CV editing is like super fun. I'm going to pull this past where it needs to be. I'm going to overbuild this because I can actually come in and trim this shape as long as I'm happy with it. And I'm actually going to leave a little bit of this center rib because I'm going to kind of simulate the fact that the halves don't line up exactly correct because it's an awful die-casted part that wasn't never made right. And then I'm going to go and trim out this shape. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to start here like that. And I'm going to do that. And pull that straight out. Do that. And then I'm going to use all of these curves to trim this. So I'm going to trim out that. And that should give me, in the side view, my kind of barrel shape. And if it's too big or too small or whatever, I still have my points that I can mess with. I can just adjust it as necessary. But I'm going to call that pretty good. In fact, I might pull the top in a little bit. Again, I don't have the actual object to reference off of, so I don't really know what the actual object looks like, but my approximate sketch. I use the cell U command to pick all of the points in that direction, because I just want to change the shape just a little bit. And I'm going to mirror this across the center line. And then what I'm going to do, I like to build, I refer to them as chunks. I like to build in water type chunks. And so what I'm going to do is attach these two guys and make them into a chunk. And that way I know that it is going to be watertight. And at the end, when I've finished the model, I can basically just really quickly go through and Boolean stuff together. And it's easy to deal with. In some cases, if I have something that's really being a pest, like I have got a really, really complicated model and it just doesn't want a Boolean and I don't want to take the time to figure out why, and just for your own information, the reason Booleans don't work is because something is not intersecting correctly, and the way to diagnose that is to use the intersect command, which is in here. Use the object intersection, and then look at the curve. If the curve is broken anywhere, that's where the problem in your Boolean is. So we've got our main shape. Let's go ahead and make these details on the top. We're getting close. 38 minutes in so far. We're doing all right. Everybody doing okay so far? Any questions so far or anything? Am I boring anyone to death? All right. Let's go ahead and make these details. This is a repeated detail, so we can make one and then just use it. And because I've already got the basis of that detail down here, I'm just going to steal it with an Alt-Tap drag. And then I'm going to scale it up like that. And then it has, I'm going to isolate that for now, so all we did do is look at that. And it has a chamfer little step detail in here. Actually, it's not a chamfer, it's just another stacked cylinder. So let's go ahead and add that. Command C, Command V, Shift drag, and then let's stick it out a little bit like that. And then this guy on the inside has this little tooth detail in it. So we can do that just with a Boolean cylinder, right? So we're just going to take that, and I'm going to start here. We'll go to something like that. And let's just make sure it's in the right position. Something like that. Go to the front view. We'll do a polar array. Snap to the center, and then let's try like 25 of these and see what it looks like. I think that's too many, so let's do 20. That looks better. And then we'll just simply do a Boolean subtract or a Boolean difference from that using these. And we get that. Okay, we need to scale it a little bit to get it back to where it is supposed to be, which is kind of right there. And then I may actually Boolean this together at this time just to get everything settled, and then I go to the top view and I might mirror this like that because it was a detail on both sides of this object. In fact, they may even want to touch. So I may actually stick them in a little bit like that. And I might even Boolean those together. Copy it, just drag with an Option tap or an Alt tap. And then I'm going to drag and steal this one more time for down here. And then this detail actually looks like something that we can steal from here. So I'm going to steal that. It needs to be bigger, so I'm going to shift drag and scale it up. And then I'm going to do a scale 1 to make it shorter. And I used scale 1 instead of gumball at this point because the gumball wasn't necessarily aligned with the object itself. And there is a way to do that, but I find that like making that change is just enough of a flow killer to slow me down. So let's poke that out like that. All right. So there's that detail. What else do we need to make? We need to carve where the logo is going to be, but maybe we make this transition first. It looks like this actually has a transition through it like that, so let's make that transition. So I'm going to cut this off like that. I'm going to just trim it because I need an open edge to work on anyways. So I'm going to just trim this off. And then we need to just build a transition from this object onto this object. So I'm going to hide everything. And let's wireframe. And it looks like the transition is going to land somewhere in here. So I need to pick where that transition is going to go. Something like that. I'm going to project this curve onto this object. And then that gives me a place to work towards. I'm going to get rid of this curve just so I don't get confused. And I'm going to explode this curve because it projected all the way through the object. So I'm going to explode this and get rid of the one in the back just so I can focus on what I'm trying to do. And if we look at this in shaded view, you can see that like this tucks into this up here. And so this is probably about where we want to start building that surface. And what I may do, actually, just to make my life easy, is I may close this up and Boolean it together just so I get the trim between the two. So I'm going to trim, I'm going to just Boolean this really quickly. Let's do it right, shall we? If you pick the loft backwards, like I picked up here and then down here, it made the loft go back, it made the loft twist. Just redo it, or there's actually an align curves function in there. So let's Boolean these guys together. So now those two chunks are put together. And then I can shift command click and then delete this surface, which seems counterintuitive, but that's fine. And then what I want to do is I actually want to split this curve so that it lines up with the top of this. So I'm going to start drawing a line here. I'm going to bring a line over here till it touches. And then I'm going to take this curve and trim that guy off. And now I'm set up to do a really nice two rail sweep. So let's go ahead and do that. So sweep 2 rails. This guy here, I'm going to just let it run to the bottom and say sweep. And then I'm going to mirror this around 0. And then what I'm going to do is trim this guy, this part off here so that I have like a little clean edge. And so what I'm going to do is shift command click, get rid of this. And then what I need to do is I need to trim the bottom of these surfaces, this one, and this one, off flush with this. So I'm going to extract these for now. And we'll go to the front view. And then I'm going to use a center point curve, or a line from midpoint, I guess. I should use the right terminology. And I'm just going to drag a line out like that and trim. And I'm going to just drag select and knock those off. And this is just a really easy way to kind of put this thing together. And then what I can do is I can actually take this surface and trim this off, cut the inside of that off, cut the inside of this off. Then this thing all joins together. And then all I have to do is just loft up the open spots. Just go from here to here. And then join this whole thing up. And it should be a closed poly surface. And we look down at the bottom, you can see that it is. So that's our little transition in there. So now I can start doing things like I could Boolean this to the chassis, I could Boolean this to here, but I think I'm going to hold off just yet. I'm going to just get a little farther down the road before I do so. So let's go back to wireframe. How's everybody doing? Any questions so far? I do that to give myself a pause to drink some coffee. So now I've got a bunch of curves in the scene. I'm going to make a layer here for curves, and I'm just going to hide them on that. I'm going to just move these to here, and then I'm going to hide them so that I still have them, but I don't want them to be in the way. So now I need to do a few detailing things in here. So let's go ahead and draw this. Let's draw this logo space. So I'm going to start with a circle, and then I'm going to overdraw all of this stuff. Maybe I'll aim for that just from a designer's point of view. And then come down like this, and I'm just overdrawing this because I'm gonna cut it back, trim it all up, and clean the edges up. So let's go. I may actually draw that with a curve. Let's do that. So I want it to kind of follow that shape. And I'm not in the habit of doing so because I'm used to the right click on Windows, but if you hit the space bar in Rhino and in Mac, it repeats the last thing that you just did. So instead of right clicking and having to pick from the menu, if you just hit space bar. So I've got a bunch of curves in here. I'm going to use a tool called Curve Boolean. And I'm just going to click in the center of that, and I'm going to delete all of the input, and I'm going to combine the regions and say go. And then it trims that entire thing into one object, which I can then go and then do some filleting on the edges. And a radius of 1 is way too big, so let's do 0.2. That's probably still way too big. Yep. Let's do 0.08. That's better. So if I spacebar, that one needs to be tighter. And I may leave, let's see, we'll do a little tighter. We'll do 0.02. That'll work. And then I'm going to just fillet these edges because I just don't like sharp edges. So there's that. Let's make a cutter. And I'm going to slide this out to where I can see it. And then because I want this to actually be an object, I'm going to make a planar surface out of this first. And then I'm going to use the extrude icon, and I'm just going to slide that in until it hits the model. And because we built this in chunks, right, this is a watertight chunk, so it's good for Booleans. So what I'm going to do is Boolean difference from this. I don't want to delete the input using this. And what that's going to do is that's going to cut a contour on the back of this that I can then take and shove into the model to make my inset, and it'll be inset curved as opposed to inset, it'll be inset following the surface instead of inset with a flat bottom on it, which gives me a nice, I show people this all the time and they're always like, oh my God, I never thought about that. It's like, well, you should take one of my classes. So there's our logo inset. And I'm not going to worry about the other side for now because our rendering is just going to be from this side. So we're going to focus on this side. I don't want to make you sit here for longer than you have to. So let's do this detail in here, and this is basically just going to be an offset detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this line. And again, I'm just kind of eyeballing this. I'm not really like, if I was trying to really be precise, I would measure all this stuff out, but we're working at the speed of demo here. And there's a couple of cheats that we can do. So like Watch this. So if I was really sloppy and didn't line any of these points up, which I didn't, see how none of these line up? Check this out. If I grab all of this, gumball pops up. If I click this and hit 0, boop, they all line up again. Hooray! All right, so let's take this guy. I'm going to isolate everything except that. And I'm going to wire cut right through the center of this thing using a surface like that. And then what I'm going to do is do a Boolean split of this using that. And then I can take this thing and just scale it out a little bit. And there's my detail. And then I can just click this and Boolean it right back together. Now, Booleans before version 6 used to have a really hard time with coplanar surfaces. Version 6 handles that a lot better now, as just shown. So how are we doing? We're doing all right. This looks really wide to me, so I'm going to make these much narrower. Like that. And then this thing, I'm going to make much, actually I'm going to make it fatter. And I'm going to shove it all the way through, so it goes all the way through the model. And I can line it up right with the center by using gumball and a snap. And I'll just snap it to the midpoint. By the way, if your gumball doesn't snap, there's a setting in here from smooth dragging to snappy dragging. Snappy dragging makes it respect O-snaps. So if your gumball is not snapping, make sure that you set it to be snappy. All right. So we're doing all right so far. We've got just a few pieces left to build. We've got this little detail in the back, and then we've got the little carriage for the front here. And I'm going to do that. Let's see. Let's try and think of a creative way to do that. So let's draw this. Yeah, this will be fun. Here. This might not be the exact way to do it, but it's an interesting technique that I want to show you. So I'm going to draw this shape, make sure that it's closed. And then I'm going to copy paste and scale it a little bit. And then copy paste and scale it a little bit again. And I may need to adjust my shape a little bit on the inside, but as long as I'm using the same number of points, it's fine. This is a technique I stole from a good friend and also really good Rhino instructor, Dave Schultz. If you're not familiar with him, you should be. He teaches at Linda. And he has a pretty great series of Rhino classes on Linda that you could look at. So let's go to wireframe. And let's move this guy down a little bit here. I'm just going to create a little curve network here. And then we're going to use loft to get this kind of cool rounded shape. So I'm going to isolate these so we can see what's going on. Right now, these are all lined up, right? So I'm going to take the center one, I'm going to pull it out a little bit. And then I'm going to take that one and mirror it around the center line so that we've got this little setup like this. And then I'm going to use loft. I'm going to use loft. And I'm going to start clicking 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to go all the way around that, but I'm going to have a closed loft. And it'll make, let's do something like that. That's a little wonky, but it's okay. I'm not going to worry too much about it. Say loft, and then we can shade. Actually, that looks pretty janky. I'm not in love with that. How about you guys? Let's do a different way. I don't like that. So let's kill this idea. I always like to say I make the mistakes so you don't have to. Let's do it a different way. So let's take these two objects. I'm going to extrude them back and make a proxy object, and then I'm going to just blend between them. That's my other go-to. Let's do blend surface, which I can never find. So I'm going to use my pop-up. Oh, do I not have it in my pop-up? There it is. Nope. Nope. Oh, now I got to go find it. Everybody's like, you work on the Windows side most of the time, don't you? Yes, yes, I do. I know it's in here. Where are you? Everybody's like, it's right there. There it is. Blend surface. So we're going to go from here to here. I'm going to just blend those two together. I'm going to do it with tangency, and I'm going to do same height. And I'm going to add some shapes so that I can control where it's blending to and from. See how this is a little cleaner? And then same height. And then I'm going to lock these, and then I'm going to just drag this a little bit and make it a little puffier, like that. Then I'm going to say, okay, then I'm going to delete this and this. And then I can move this out just a little bit, mirror it around the center line. And then I can just loft these together, or blend, or whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter at this point. So why did blend look so awful when we did it before? The reason was because the control points on the curves weren't in the exact same locations throughout the model. The loft was having a hard time figuring out where it should connect everything to. So that looks pretty cool. Pretty happy with that. And again, this is a watertight chunk. There shouldn't be at this point, if I look in here, and if there is, we need to fix it. But if I look way down here in the edge tools, if I do select open polysurfaces, nothing should light up, because that means that there would be something that's open. And if it's open, then we would need to fix it as we're going through this. And so because nothing's open at this point, I know that even if I just took this entire model as it sat without Booleaning anything together, which I do quite frequently, by the way, and just throw it to a printer, the printer will actually print each individual closed object in proximity to the other closed objects. Now it would be solid, and sometimes the printer guys get upset with you because you use a ton of resin like that. It wouldn't be shelled. But if you were using like a Z-Core printer or something just to do a fit check, you could throw this through the printer completely unjoined or completely unbooleaned. As long as each particular element was closed, when you mesh it, it'll go through the printer just fine. So oftentimes if I'm doing a concept model and I'm doing a really fast build like this, I'll actually go through and I'll print it in this state just to make sure that it's going to fit my hand, that it's not too crazy, that there's not something poking me or anything like that. And then I'll go back and do my refinements. I'll do the the little itty bitty fillets and all that stuff, and I'll Boolean everything together, and then I'll shell it, and blah blah blah. Okay. So, but for now, basically what I do is I'll just take this thing as it sits. I won't even join all this stuff together, and I'll just throw it through the printer like this and test it to make sure that it's going to work. Let's make our trigger. I'm going to just do that with a pipe. Any questions so far? I'm either doing a really good job explaining it or you guys are sleeping on me. Either's fine. Do that. I'm going to squish it just a little bit because I think it's more flat than round. Squish it just a little flat like that. And then we've got one more detail to make at the back, and then we'll jump into the grip, which is the thing I've been avoiding. And not because I don't know how to do it, but just I wanted to make sure we got the other stuff done first. I'm going to change the direction constraint to none here so that I can draw in the front view and then extrude in the side view. And that actually works out great. It's almost perfectly wide enough, and I only need to chop off this last little this last little bit here. So I'm just going to hack that off like this. And I'm going to do that with wire cut. Just hack that off. Okay. So now I just need to add the little threaded element on there, and I'm going to show you one of my favorite tricks for threads, and it is there's an industrial supply catalog in the U.S. for those of you who are not in the U.S. called McMaster Carr. McMaster Carr has every type of industrial finding you could ever need. So I'm going to go here, and it doesn't even matter. We'll just do low strength steel rod, and I want to do something, let's say 1 inch in diameter. If I click on the part number and then I look up here, there's a thing that says product detail. Check this out. I go to the product detail. If I scroll down here, it actually has a CAD drawing of the thing, and I can go up here and I can go and I can save this as a step file to my computer. I can download it. And so what that keeps me from having to do ever is build threads ever again. And so what I'll do is I'll import that from my downloads folder. And it'll bring in that threaded rod perfectly. And then I can just steal it and use it for my model. Now, the cool thing about this, and here's my McMaster Carr plug, and in this case, I don't need this to actually be an accurately threaded part. I just like the detail. But here's the thing about McMaster Carr. If you use those parts in digital form, and then you print them, like I use these for making threaded inserts all the time. I gotta grab a drink of coffee. My voice is fading on me. So if I need a threaded insert in a print, what I'll do is I'll grab one of these parts from McMaster Carr, I'll stick it in my model, and I'll use it as a Boolean object. And then what I can do is, especially if it's a specialty part, I can actually use the McMaster Carr model, order the part from McMaster Carr, and then by the time the print's done, the part's sitting on my front desk, on my front doorstop, and then I just simply thread the part right into the model. And so these are incredibly accurate. I mean, these work really well. I do this all the time. So instead of modeling threads, there's all sorts of demos on modeling threads. Don't model threads. You're wasting your time. Just go grab them. They're there. That's what they're there for. So I'm going to take this and this. I can Boolean this together. I don't have to, but it works well. The models are really high quality. So now the last thing that we need to do is build the grip. And the grip is the most complicated part, but in some respects it's not. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to Boolean these two pieces together for now so that I can see what's going on. And it looks like there's an issue down here. So I won't Boolean them for now. Let's hide this stuff. But what I do want to do is I want to copy this curve because I don't want to violate that curve. So let's grab this. And what I want to point out, if you're getting started and your brain is just melting right now, the thing that you need to understand is we have not done anything really complicated. None of the stuff that I've shown you today is beyond a beginner's skill set. It's just familiarity with the tools. But everything in here is actually fairly common, right? So to do this grip, this has a lot of shape to it, and people get scared of that and say, oh my God, how am I ever going to make this thing? Well, first of all, I'm going to overbuild it. So I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to just start drawing the contours. And I want to use as few points as possible. Remember, 3 points for a corner, not 60. Actually, I'm going to end this at the bottom, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these as rail curves to build a surface that we're then going to do just a little bit of sculpting on. And that will actually make this fairly daunting, complicated organic part pretty simple. So those are our two rails. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a straight line, and I'm going to draw from here, and I want to kind of get a little bit of angle so that I get the shape of these things. And I'm going to draw kind of like here. I'm going to draw another one at the bottom. So that's our bottom. And then I want another one kind of here, because I want to be able to have these be inflection points in the model. And so I want to have control in those areas. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do one more at the top. And these curves right now, because they're only straight lines, they've only got 2 control points. So I'm going to change their degree. We talked about that earlier, and I'm going to do these as degree 3, which is then going to give me 4 points in each one of these. Now what I can do, I'm going to isolate all this for now. Now what I can do is I can come in here, and I'm going to use the lasso tool, which allows me to make a non-square selection. And I'm going to just lasso these points. And then I'm going to use gumball, and I'm going to pull them out to get some shape. Okay? And this is going to give me the basis for what I need to start sculpting in here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do this with a 2-rail sweep. And I could do this with history on and then adjust using history, but chances are what I'm going to do is just run this and then do some point sculpting on it. And so because I'm going to do some point sculpting on it, I actually may rebuild the cross sections and just do it with like 4 points. And then say sweep. And what that'll do is that'll give me this shape. And then what I can do is I'm going to rebuild this surface a little bit. And it's got 61 points in the U and 4 in the V. I think I could get away with less, so I'm going to do like 30 points in the U. And that gives me a little bit more organized. In fact, I might even be able to get away with less than that. Let's try 15 and see what it looks like. That actually is not bad. See that our shapes are already starting to show up? And what this will do is this will give me enough information that I can then start sculpting on this thing. And when I do that, I'm going to just turn the points on, and I'm going to just start grabbing a few points. I'm going to change the gumball's location. Relocate gumball, gumball relocate. I'm going to relocate the gumball to the edge, and then I can just use scale, see that, to bring those guys in. And I can start working on that and pulling that detail in. So there's that. You might want to pull these guys in. Gumball relocate. And then again, I'm going to just use scale to bring those guys in a little bit. And so you can see that my grip detail starts to show up. And I can move them as well if I need more. And then this guy up here was pretty extreme. So I'm actually going to just pull that out. And then I might tuck some of these in. So the key here is to use as few points as you can to get your starting shape. Because if you have tons and tons of points, it's going to be difficult to basically control what you want this thing to do. Whereas if you have fewer points, it's going to be easier to keep track of where everything is and how you're doing your sculpture. But so we're going to do something like that, and that actually kind of gives us a pretty good indicator. Maybe I'll pull this up just a little bit of what we want this thing to do. Cool? It's not nearly as scary as it looked, right? It's actually not bad at all. We're starting to get that cool zigzag detail in there. Just go slow. Make an edit and then check it and see whether you like it. If you don't, undo it and back up. So now that we've got that, make sure the top view, that's good. And then I may scale this entire thing. Make sure that the top view, that our center line, that our back line hasn't shifted on us, but I'm going to flatten this out just a little bit. We're almost done with this thing. So if I'm going to bring this part back, I'm going to move the whole thing into place. I'm going to mirror it across the center line. I'm going to isolate these, and I'm going to make them into a chunk. So I'm going to just loft this together real quickly so that this thing is watertight. Once that's watertight, cap it, bring everything back, and we've got a pretty good indicator of what's going on there. I may scale this just a little bit. It looked like it got a little small on me, so I'm going to just bump that up a little bit. And it looks like it wants to have a little clearance around all of this, so it looks like a plastic piece that fits in there. So what I may do, I may stick these two pieces together for now, and then come in here and draw a little witness line around here. So it really looks like it's kind of shoddy plastic. And we are just about ready to start putting materials on this thing. I'm going to just do a Boolean split here. And I like to do Boolean split at this point because it just, you know, you can do wire cut or you can do whatever you want to do, but I like split because I can decide what I want to do with the pieces later. And then I don't like the shape on the bottom of this thing, so let's fix that. I will use wire cut here. And we are donezo. I think that's it. Get everything? I think we got everything. So let's hide our curves. Change these to this layer. I'm going to hide my image. Let's save it because we haven't done that yet. And we can decide what to do with this at this point. We can either throw this through a printer because everything's closed, right? If I go down here and look at this and say edge tools, select open poly surface, nothing should light up, and it doesn't. And then the other thing we can do is do cell surf, which will light up any surfaces that aren't part of a poly surface. So like a sphere, for instance, is not a closed poly surface, but it is a surface. And so we would want to identify that to make sure that it doesn't have any openings in it. All right. So I'm not even going to bother. I'm not even going to bother Booleaning this thing together. Now, what I could do is start going in and refining this and adding, you know, fillets to this stuff so that these are softer and things like that. But with we're at 10, we're at an hour 17 right now, so I don't want to kill you guys. But the next part of this is I would actually start joining this thing together, and I would start knocking off the edges. But let's throw a few materials on this and just have a little bit of fun with it. So I'm going to go to the bring up my materials, and let's add a metal, and let's grab everything with the exception of the grips, and let's assign that. And let's go to rendered view just for fun. So there's that, and that's a little too shiny. This thing was supposed to be die cast, so let's knock the polish off of it. And let's actually throw a little speckle texture on this thing. It's gonna think a second. That's a little heavy. So let's go extra small. Give it that kind of die cast. Maybe find one that feels about right. That kind of has a little die cast feel to it, right? And then let's throw, maybe the color of this needs to be a little grayer, not quite that gray. Something like that, so it feels a little more die casty. And then let's do a new one. It's plastic, not plaster, plastic. Let's make that one kind of a Bakelite red. Something kind of maybe like this. And let's assign that to this. There we go. And then maybe the trigger is made out of a slightly different metal. Like this thing would all be one casting. Maybe the trigger is like a stamped piece of steel or something like that instead. So maybe we make a different one for that. We'll do a different metal. And assign that here. Let's knock the polish down and make it just a slightly different color. There we go. And because we don't have our fillets on there, the edges start to get a little, they start to lose it a little bit in rendered mode. But let's see what it looks like in ray trace. If we throw it in ray trace mode, we should get a little better detail. And you'd have all sorts of fun with this, doing sub-object selection and doing sub-object material assignment. We could put a little a paint hit on these little dials and a little paint hit on this, and maybe a little, we could add some deco to it. But these things were really cheaply made, and they were just die cast. So this is about what they looked like. So you can see on this MacBook Pro, you can see my counter down here is moving pretty slow because the graphics card in this thing isn't really quite where it needs to be in order to really crush it. But on my desktop, I've got an NVIDIA M6000 that's got like 4,000 CUDA cores in it. This thing would be done already. But you can see even at 35 samples, it's still, you can still get a pretty good look at what this thing looks like. And at this part, at an hour and 21 minutes, we are ready to throw this through a printer and test it, see whether it fits in your hand, see whether you can put your finger through the trigger guard, see whether our sculpt on the handle feels good, and all that kind of stuff. And then go back, make final adjustments. Because we didn't Boolean everything together, everything is super easy to modify. And we could make our second iterations, throw a second print through. And then by the end of the day, not even by the end of the day, well, by the end of the day, by the time the print comes out, we could probably have one or two variations on this thing to make sure that we, like the product as it sits. So I spent most of my life in the toy industry, and that was kind of the pace that we were expected to work at. So a couple hours of modeling into the printer, grab the thing out of the printer, test it, make some modifications, throw it back into the printer before you leave, pick up the print the next morning, make 1 or 2 modifications, and then a day later ship it. You know, that's kind of the pace of the toy industry. So, so it's 77 passes right now. You can see we've got a predefined render already. This will go to 1,000, so it's going to take some time. So you don't have to sit and watch that if you don't want to. But this is pretty much what I have for you today. Pretty simple build, kind of a neat little object when we're done, and kind of a fun little nod to 50s Americana atomic toys. And that's about it. So that's pretty much what I have for you today. Any questions on anything? Anything that you saw that you were like, whoa, what are you thinking there? Anybody run into something along the lines of a modeling problem like that grip that they didn't quite know how to handle, or what? Anything else I can help you with before we take off? If not, I'll let you go. You're more than welcome to just hit the door. With my thanks for joining. One question? Got one question coming in. Yes, all of the videos for Rhino are posted on Vimeo. I believe we also have a YouTube channel, but Vimeo.com/Rhino is where all of this stuff gets printed, all the stuff gets posted. You can see the one that we just did yesterday, this toaster for Windows is here, and it'll be here as well. There's albums, and the albums are the channels for all this, or the portfolios. It'll be the getting started Rhino stuff, and I'll throw this in the chat so you can have it. That's where it all is. And I believe, let me just double check, because I know there was Vane just sent me a link to the YouTube channel. Hang on a second. Bear with me while I find it. It's not just cat videos, so it's not just rhinos. Gotta be specific. There we go, Rhino tutorials. This is ours. Nope, that's not ours. Which one is ours? Let's see. Bear with me for a second while I get it. It's in my Slack link here. This should be our channel. Let's see. This is the toaster one. Rhino 3D. Here we go. There's a long way to get there. Sorry about that. This is our YouTube channel, and all of the stuff that we do will also be here as well. Could one get out 2D shapes out of the surfaces of a curvy item? What do you mean as far as 2D shapes of the surfaces? Could one get out 2D shapes of the surfaces of a curvy item? Like you wanted to flatten it, like if you're making it out of sheet metal? This is the video we did yesterday, by the way, the toaster one. There is 2 commands. One's called smash and the other one's called squish. They will flatten a 3D item, but since it's not a developable surface, because it's compound in 2 directions, there is an aspect of stretch to that you have to account for. I found in most cases, as long as you're building a prototype by hand or something like that, usually there's enough fudge factor in there that you can make it work. But in order to have it unroll cleanly, it would all need to be developable surfaces. And there's a setting for that when you do loft. So we would build that grit section differently. We would build it with loft and we would use it developable. And then the shapes would be a little bit different, but they would unroll or smash or squish nicely. So, any other questions? Fantastic. Well, thank you everybody for joining, especially the folks from Europe who joined us. I know it's late over there, and I definitely appreciate you spending your evening with us. We do these about once a month, so keep an eye out on the splash page or on rhino3d.com/learn, and we'll go from there. Yeah, if you want to send me an email, my email is kylemcneil.com. And then I also own a consultancy called the outside.biz, which is here if you're interested. That's me as well. All right. Thank you for joining. That's all I have for you today, and I will let you go. My name is Kyle Houchins. This was Getting Started with Rhino for Mac. We will see you again next time. Thanks, everybody.